Hello, thank you for coming to my channel. This is JT, and this is a VR in response to Janika's and Madame Bathsheba's hashtag tarot origin story, which she's using. I'll link it to below, but she's using this as part of her research into her dissertation. And just to say, I give my consent to this being used if she wants to use it at all. So let's get into this. She's got 6 questions about your tarot origin story, and number 1 is, what kind of religious upbringing did you have? Well, I had a very nice religious upbringing, I must say. I feel very privileged in that because it was very mild. I went to church every Sunday. Halfway during the service, all the kids would go to Sunday school, so we would leave the church, go to another sort of like little, I think, school hall, like maybe 5 minutes up the road, do some singing, do some chatting, and then come back down to the church, where afterwards everybody would mingle with a cup of tea, maybe a scone, maybe some biscuits, and yeah, and then we would go to our friend's place for lunch, and it was, I mean, extremely pleasant. I think I probably did what all kids do, as being dragged out of bed to church, or from your from playing or reading or whatever you were doing to church. Probably didn't love it, but I think once it was there, it was perfectly nice. And I realize that I'm very privileged and lucky with that experience. I know that some people, particularly people who are LGBT or who have been to churches that are a lot more intolerant and unforgiving, particularly with Christianity. I know there's a lot of people who've had that experience, and for me, that just wasn't there. I think, looking back on the church, I think it was, broadly speaking, it was a very tolerant church. My mum was very much a progressive in terms of her own politics and view of the world, and so she would, she was a great protester and protested against the Springboks when they came to New Zealand in 1981. She, protested against the French bombing of the Pacific, particularly Mururoa Atoll. And I think the church was involved with that. This was when I was, quite young. I can't really remember very much about it, but it was the 80s. I feel like my mum, if it had been an intolerant church, I don't think she would have gone to that one. She would have found another one. So yeah, I mean, I think it was as tolerant as churches in the 80s were. I can't speak for anybody who went to the church who would have been, LGBT, for example, or queer, because I don't think anybody, I mean, it just wasn't part of, it was one of those things where it just wasn't mentioned, if you know what I mean. It was the 80s. And I just think, it's something, being, young, I probably wouldn't have picked up on. I will say that I was probably, in my class of kids, very few people went to church. And yeah, and I think, so, but I wasn't an outlier. I mean, it wasn't something that people did, but we did, and it was fine. So I guess realizing that I wasn't a Christian didn't come out of, any sort of bad feeling towards how I had been treated or how other people had been treated during my experience of the church. It was just a sort of moment where I realized that I just didn't have faith, and I thought that I I read Narnia over and over and over when I was a kid. And I think somehow, weirdly, even though it's very much a Christian allegory, I think seeing that, particularly The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Aslan, you know, sacrificing himself and then um, being restored to life in a very, very obvious nod to Jesus and the resurrection. I just saw it as a story, and I think I just seemed like clear to me that the Bible was also the story. The Bible was itself an allegory, not something that was actually happened. And when somebody I really looked up to said, no, 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 these things actually happened. They're not, allegories or stories. I believe that Jesus, rose from the dead after 3 days. I just sort of realized that I didn't. I didn't believe that. I didn't have that faith. And yeah. And that's what, made me realize that I wasn't a Christian. And yeah, so that was it really. I think also the other thing about my upbringing was, although that there was this sort of Sunday worship and and we would obviously also go to church on Easter and Christmas. I don't even, I can remember occasionally maybe praying before bed, but it certainly wasn't expected. And it certainly wasn't part of our lives, as I think, apart from those Sundays, that I think it was for other people. So, yeah. So I think, it was pretty nice. But I understand for a lot of people that isn't the case for them, and I'm sorry about that. So I think though my mum was very much a spiritual seeker, very much into sort of new age ideas of manifestation, I guess, astrology. I don't remember her at all using the tarot. And I don't know why that would be. I mean, it might just not have interested her. She did like, I remember we played cards a lot, as something to do, but we weren't really, and it could have just been that there wasn't that much chance of finding, tarot or anything like that back in the 80s, back in my sort of smallish city in the South Island of New Zealand. Yeah, so that's it. So number 2 is, what was your first exposure to tarot and how did you get your first deck? It's really hard for me to think about what my first exposure to tarot was. Because I think it was somehow in my consciousness, and it could have been just because as a child I just read and read and read, and I could have picked up on some tarot cards from some of the books I read, maybe. I feel like there wasn't anybody in my life that was talking to me about tarot. However, when I got this deck, the Aquarian tarot, and I've put a couple of cards here on up top, they were really familiar to me, not in a way that sort of like, I saw them in a dream or anything, but that I saw them somewhere. So I wonder if maybe on the wall, maybe they were posters on the wall of one of my friends' houses or something. I don't know. I mean, these two cards, the star and the moon, I felt like I had seen them, and I'd seen them back in the day when I was a little child. So yeah, so it could have been that there were people who were, it could have been just a background hum, I think, maybe, of tarotness. Yeah, I don't know. I sort of, I remember, I think it was when I was 15, we did the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, and there is the Hanged Man turns up in that, and that might have sort of um, interested me, I think. The rider, not this particular actual deck, but something very similar to it. This was my first deck when I was about, I don't know, maybe about the same time as J. Alfred Prufrock. I think I bought this deck, and it would have been from a bookshop. It would have been something that I would have I took it home, and so it wasn't a gift or anything like that. I remember taking it home, and I remember feeling a profound sense of disappointment, not in the cards but in myself, when I couldn't read them. They were really opaque to me. Like I would look at, a card, and it just didn't speak to me at all. I can see now that, the Seven of Pentacles is all about hard work and waiting for things to, all your efforts to come to fruition. As a teenager, I would look at that and just think, I don't know what's going on here. And I had the little white book similar to this one. So this is 1971, 1991 copyright, so it might not have been, yeah. I mean, I just found the keyword meanings just as opaque, like the magician, skill, diplomacy, address, sickness, pain, loss, disaster, self-confidence, will, the querent himself, if male, reversed physician, magus, mental illness, disgrace, disquiet. And I mean, like the high priestess, secrets, mystery, the future as yet unrevealed, the woman who interests, the querent if male, the querent if female. I don't know. I mean, it feels like it's very much written of a certain time. Yeah, so but I felt like, because I was doing this on my own, and because I didn't have any other resources, and it didn't occur to me to even go to the library and check if there was any tarot books, because I didn't have any other resources, I just thought that the issue with me not being able to read the cards was with me. And so I would occasionally get the cards out again, look through them, try and get something from them that I could use, the Hangman, and just failing each time. And I think I was going to the cards with a sense of, this is impossible for me to read, and so I was coming with quite a closed mind, if you know what I mean. Perhaps if somebody had said, don't worry about the key meanings, just think about what this means to you, like lose yourself in each card, I think I would have fared much better. But what happened was, I took them around with me, I took them to university, I took them to various flats that I lived in, and when we decided to move to the UK after uni, I probably just left this deck with a friend. I can't remember who even, but yeah, I would have just given it away. Yeah, so that's my first deck. When did tarot become a more important part of your practice, and when, if ever, did you stop being skeptic? What was your moment of tarot conversion like? So I'd always sort of kept on having a passing interest in tarot. I really like the Rider-Waite. I really love the images in the Rider-Waite tarot deck. I really enjoy the visual aspect of it, and I would sort of, see different tarot decks, online or anything like, or something like that, and just be like curious about them. Um, I guess at the beginning of 2021, and we all know what 2021 was like, and 2020, and I think at that point, we had been in the pandemic for almost a year, and we were all sort of like at the point of, when is this going to end? Um, and my daughter was 5 at the time, and she was off school. We were homeschooling her, and it made me realize that I'm never going to be a teacher. It was so difficult, and in the end, we decided to prioritize her mental health over, her schoolwork, which is, which had its difficulties as well. For me, I was really supported by my work. They let me go on a partial furlough so I could look after my child, and my husband was also, doing, you know, doing as much with her as well, so we could manage to both do our work while look after her. I was just so exhausted. I was just drained, as I think everybody was, and sad, and sort of, how are we going to live through this? It felt like there was no end in sight. And so I decided, maybe what I need to do is try and find a tool to become basically back to myself a little bit, but also because I really felt the lack of doing anything just creative, like just playing, and so I came across this deck. This is the mass market Hay House edition of the Muse tarot. I know most people have the Lightseers tarot, but I just didn't know anything about tarot tube or tarot community at that point, and this the blurb really sort of struck a chord with me. Basically, it says, the suits are recast as emotions, cups, inspiration, wands, voices, swords, and materials, pentacles, to deliver messages from the source of creation. The detailed guidebook contains card meanings, poetry, and word prompts to offer insight into your readings while stoking the sparks of your creativity. Ignite the muse within. And I just thought, yes, that's what I want. I need to ignite the muse within. And so I bought it, and then promptly didn't do anything with it for until about autumn. At the same time, and not COVID related, but I had a bit of a health scare, and I got all the tests that you can possibly do, and I sort of realized that my health scare, at one point, it was sort of pointed out that it was probably a panic attack, and I decided to go into therapy, and that happened in about autumn 2021, and I at the same time picked up the Muse tarot, and I also picked up this book, Tarot for Change, by Jessica Dorr, which most people would have heard of, and using the cards for self-care, acceptance, and growth. So this is what this book, this deck became for me, something about self-healing, really, and doing that in tandem with therapy was amazing, and it really helped, and this book really helped. So it was fantastic, I've got to say. But I feel like I was using the cards as tools, I'm just going to put this one aside for a moment. Yeah, as tools to sort of think about what was going on in my life, how I could change the things that I wasn't happy about. I have a couple of issues with this deck. first of all, it is very, how can I put this? It is not very, it's not age diverse at all. It's not body diverse at all. I think a lot of people might have a problem with these horizontal cards. The Muses are the kings in this deck, and well, I don't have a problem with that. That's possibly because, this was the first deck that I'd worked with any sort of actual intention, I guess. Yeah, I mean, you can see this, and it's mostly, I mean, you can see some different ages here, kind of. There's some male figures here, or male representing figures. But mostly it's a female-led deck. Anyway, I think this is a great Five of Emotions card. So Five of Cups. Anyway, I was doing all this work, and I was using sort of very much internal emotional work, and I was using this deck as, back up with this. And then one day I did a reading. I can't remember the reading, and I sort of want to be really vague about this. About this in terms of what I was doing this for, but but this card came up for me, Awakening, and I think we all have this time when there's been a card or a specific reading or something that has happened that show us that these tarot cards are powerful beyond tools. So this card coming up for me when it did, Awakening, it's the Judgment card in most decks. When it came up for me, it just kind of, it was very powerful, and I felt very that this wasn't just about self-care. It was about spirituality, and it was about sparking my spirituality in a way that I didn't know I needed. It was more, multi-layered. I think it was a card that really spoke to me, and this means that despite my issues with this deck in terms of body and age diversity, this deck is really special to me and holds a really special place in my tarot library as the first deck that really opened my eyes to what tarot could be. Not just a tool of interpretation, but also a way of accessing your spirituality and your subconscious in a very powerful and ineffable and and another third thing I can't think of. Sorry, but it meant a lot to me, and so I think it was then that I realized that tarot was a path I wanted to take. In terms, it made me realize that what had been missing from my life ever since I understood that I didn't have faith in the Christian sense of the word, or that I wasn't a Christian, was spirituality, and what that spirituality means to me, and how I can use my spirituality. So I feel like, anyway, I feel like it's something that I'm going to be working on probably forever until until I pop my clogs, I guess. But yeah, it was a very powerful card, and I think also I think that's what I want to say about it. Okay, thanks for that. Sorry if that was a bit rambling. Number 4 is going to be quite quick. It's, when did you start reading for others or start to read for clients, and why? Or if not, have you ever thought about it? I don't read for other people. I only read for myself. I have thought about it, and my thoughts are this. I don't want to at the moment. I remember talking to my boss, my lovely, very skeptical boss, about about um tarot, and she was just looking at me with this face. Um, and her assistant was like, "Oh, tarot, would you do me a reading?" And I was like, "No, no, I will not," because I feel like it's a massive responsibility, and I also feel like this. I don't know. This might sound a bit weird. Okay, I'll sort of explain why. When I was about 16, maybe 15, 16, my mum said, why not for your birthday? Why let's get your cards read. And I was like, yeah, that sounds really great. So my mum had a friend who was um oh no, she didn't say cards read. I feel like I need to go back. I might have to edit this out. What she said was, why don't we get your chart, your star chart read, not your cards read. My mum wasn't a tarot person as far as I know. Um and So she had a friend who was really into astrology, and this her friend drew up my chart, and together I went to her my mum's friend's place, and yeah, she told she sort of like told me uh what was in my stars basically, and I remember just feeling really conned, absolutely conned by this, because felt like really coincidentally, the stars and my mum had the same opinions. So it was like my mum was saying things like, stay away from boys, work hard at school, don't do drugs. And uncannily, my star chart also said, you know, stay away from boys, work hard at school, don't do drugs, basically. And it was really unnecessary because I wasn't that kind of kid, and I felt very yeah, I felt like my mum and her friend had kind of conspired, and that was a really horrible feeling. And maybe they hadn't conspired, but maybe what had happened is that my mum's friend had heard, like my mum talking about me or something, and that had somehow infiltrated her reading of 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 my chart, maybe. And I don't really want to do that for other people. I don't really want to sort of like have a friend come up to me and say, please, can you read my cards? Can you tell me what I should do about my work situation? And me just sort of thinking, well, I know what you should do about your work situation. Your work situation is shit. You should like get another job. You're worth more than this. And having that kind of energy into the cards I read for my friends, I just feel like it would just really skew the readings and be not dishonest, but just not objective, just not, I don't know. I feel like the only way that I would read for other people would be for strangers, and I'm simply not putting myself out there. So there's no way that strangers are going to come to me and say, "Do me a reading," because I'm not going to. I'm just not. It's just not going to happen. I think the only other way I would do readings, and it would be with other people, not for other people, would be um doing a reading with somebody else who was a tarot reader. That's the only other way I can see me doing readings for other people at the moment, and with how I feel about that. And like obviously, if you do readings for your friends, I'm sure you are not like me and are much more sensitive than I would be. But that's my worry, I guess, and my worry comes out from feeling really quite conned as a teenager. Um, so 5, what are some of your qualities from your background that make you a good reader? That is, what do you bring to the table as a reader, and what do you think your tarot superpower is? Wow. Um, so I feel like my background in English literature, my background in doing classics and Latin at school, I think that sort of um, training in looking at symbols and trying to work out what you mean is something that makes me a good reader. Um, I think I try to be very open and come to it with a sort of a new mind as well, with a beginner's mind. And I think that is actually where my superpower is, something about being able to make connections between cards and the symbols and different, in different decks, is, I think I can do that quite well. But also, I think having a beginner's mind, a sort of a Page of Cups mind, maybe Page of Swords mind, um, and sort of putting in the work and learning about tarot is my tarot superpower, I think. Don't know. And number 6, when did you get into TarotTube? What is your relationship with social media? I think I'll start with the second question first. My relationship with social media is that I like to scroll. I like to scroll and not contribute. So on Instagram, I sometimes comment on people's posts, but I don't really post up there. I mean, and I think because it's become more tarot focused, there are people that follow me on Instagram that I don't necessarily want to know about my tarot, um, my tarot emphasis. Do you know what I mean? Um, Twitter, I feel like I've almost completely erased Twitter from my life. I sometimes go and go and look at it, but I don't like Twitter very much, and I'm not on Facebook. I feel like social media, I feel like when I am on it, I'm just an observer and not a participant. When I started, I think, so as I said, I kind of got into tarot in autumn last year. I guess it was when I had the sort of epiphany with the awakening card. I guess it was around about November, December, probably December. And I remember thinking, I wonder if there's anything about tarot on YouTube. And I remember the first video I saw, and it was Simon from the Hermit's Cave, who did a video. I don't know. I'll see if I can link it. It was a great video. It was about all his classic decks, and so I saw these decks that were just amazing. I saw the Aquarian Tarot for the first time. I saw Morgan Greer. I saw Druidcraft. I saw Deviant Moon, which was interesting because that's not a deck I'm interested in at all. But that was the first time I saw it. Yeah, it was just this amazing kind of world, and then I obviously just got obsessed. And I think the more that I got obsessed with TarotTube, the more I wanted to participate. I really, really like this community. I feel like it's very welcoming and very yeah, I feel like it's a lovely community, and I just really wanted to sort of get over my stance on just scrolling and just watching. I wanted to actually be an active participant, which is why I started this channel. And I'm getting there, but it's slowly. I think I'm a bit shy about showing my face, and maybe that will change. But yeah, but just at the moment, I feel like this is comfortable for me, even though I mean, people complain about their hands, and my hands are not great, but they are what they are. So yeah, so that's it. I hope Janaki, sorry, and Madam Bathsheba, I hope that was helpful. I feel like I went on for ages, but it is what it is. I'll see if I might be able to edit some bits out. I might not do that. But thank you very much for doing this tag, and I really hope that your dissertation goes extremely well. I'm really want to help out in any way I can, and yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you another time.